That is so mellow. Okay, so I play that because it's so very mellow, and because today's subject is going to be a little bit harrowing. The subject for today, I'm going to split this this crush into two parts today, mainly so we can all have a little break and people can relax and also go and have a break or whatever. So I will end this hangout and restart another, because the second part is going to be a different subject. But the subject for this first part is going to be words and their use and their impact, focusing mainly on their wrong use. So for instance, we have words that have two meanings. When somebody uses one of those words in a context that's ambiguous, where one or the other meaning might be inferred from the use, and there's no clarity, if that person doesn't bring clarity, they're open to being misinterpreted. We know this. We know that words are tools that people use to communicate. We're a social creature. Society relies on words having a coherent meaning that's shared. And when people stretch the meaning of a word or alter it altogether, as we've seen with the word wicked, which is now used as a term to refer to something fun, great, when its actual meaning is alter it altogether, as we've seen with the word wicked. Okay, so how the hell did that happen? That was way after this had started. I'd muted it first. What? Anyway, so there you go. Wicked. People using the word wicked to mean the opposite of what it actually means. Okay. And then people using words specifically that have a specific intent to cause harm and distress. Okay. That's why I call this sticks and stones. It's like, sure, sticks and stones won't break your bones, but people calling you names, although the names they call you and the words they use won't hurt you, the reaction from people hearing those words very possibly could. Here in the UK, we had a case of a pediatrician being a pediatric service that was labelled pediatrics being attacked because people assumed they thought it meant something else that starts with ped. So we're going to focus on how people use words to damage other people, specifically to damage. So initiating something to damage. Knowledge Scavenger tried doing this with me. It backfired on her. Nathan Oakley tried it. Martin Lidker tried it. Patricia's tried it. And they've also tried it on other people. Not all of them. Okay, Nathan Oakley tried it on Rory McFist. So today here we have David Chan, Lindsay, and Brendan, otherwise known as Rory McFist. If you'll say hi, guys, you can unmute now.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Okay, guys, just to let anybody know, I was, before we went live, I was arranging how I was going to introduce this and how I was going to do all these things. And I don't like this setup, this show setup gibberish. This is not a show. This is a hangout. This is a Google Hangout that's being aired on YouTube. This is not a TV show. There's no scripts. The whole, you do this and I'll do that, and that is gibberish. Other people do this. The most that I asked the guys was to mute their mics, mainly so that when the theme music for Trailer Park Boys, so that wouldn't be interrupted. That was mainly it. So now I'm going to explain something. I've been watching a lot of Jordan Peterson. This guy is freaking super luminous, okay? He is intensely intelligent and it's just a fountain of information. It's a blessing, Before we had this huge number of associations through the internet, thanks to the flat earth, with which we can all engage in pretty cerebral conversation, or at least conversation about things that are off the beaten track. I used to watch people like him continuously because I didn't have people with whom I could have any of these kinds of conversations. Now, for me, doing this is a relief, this kind of engagement, this hangout thing, because I'll get to learn loads of stuff and I like to learn. But before this flat earth world imposed itself on my experience of reality, that's listening to people like Jordan Peterson, Noam Chomsky, Norman Finkelstein, Nassim Haramein, and a list of other people. That's kind of what I did to keep myself from going nuts by not being able to engage in these things. So having said all of that, with words are powerful tools. The word guilty is very powerful. The word innocent is very powerful. All words have a power which is contained in the object they represent. Now, that object can be an abstract object like love or pain, or it can be a concrete object like a cup or a cigarette or a fist or a smile. Okay. Now, in this flat earth movement that's supposed to be about truth, we have people who intentionally, not by mistake, not through error, but intentionally lie and deceive and cause mistrust and cause problems to people. And the reason for this is that these people are psychopaths. In the world of the psychopath psychology, we've got the term psychopath kind of whittled down, diluted into the various different narcissistic personality disorders. Now, this is a way of minimizing psychopath, okay? We don't have to translate a psychopath into a narcissistic covert personality disorder or overt or any of those classifications. We can simply say psychopath that does these things because they all do the same kind of thing. They all lie, they all increase confusion, and they all center themselves in the position of attention by being the victim or by being the perpetrator. So one of the reasons I'm doing this is to highlight this very nefarious, insidious tactic that's being used in the flat earth. This comes from people like John Le Bon and other people out there, which is this. Somebody goes around doing whatever it is they're doing innocently. Somebody comes along and says lies about the innocent person. The innocent person highlights that this person has been accusing them of being a rapist or whatever, or has been accusing them of being a liar, and this person gets labeled a dramatist. Oh, you're engaging in drama. The word drama is a word, it's a tool. And when it's used like this, it's used to minimize, to dilute what this person is doing. This person is highlighting somebody else's wrongdoing. This is necessary in society. Jordan Peterson has been highlighting that the legislation in Canada is insane. It's going to cause huge problems because it imposes language, not prohibits language. You're not allowed to call that person nigger or spick. No, it imposes. You have to call that person whatever they want you to call them. And that's very different. I grew up in Spain, in Catalonia, and we were forced to speak Spanish. Now, what happens from that, the ramifications of this are huge, okay? Being forced to say things, okay? Now, when Rory, for instance, points out that somebody has lied outrageously and been abusive with it, not just lied. Somebody can lie by having the wrong end of the stick, but no, lie, twist, manipulate, and abuse whilst doing all of that. If somebody highlights that, they're doing their duty is to highlight something wrong. All flat earthers highlight that the globe is wrong, that it's false, that NASA giving us this is wrong. It's our duty to do this. And when people say this is drama, they are trying to minimize what we're doing. So bear this in mind. The next time somebody says, oh, that's just drama, go and watch the drama and see what's being done. See what the point is. Because unfortunately, it is dramatic. That's part of what the word dramatic and drama mean. It means important, not it's just it's a tragedy. No, it's a comedy. Oh, it's drama. No, okay. There's drama when a pothole opens on the road. There's drama. Okay, you're gonna say, well, I'm gonna pretend like the pothole's not there. So now I'm going to bring on David. This is Gandhi, David Chan, because David Chan and I both have experience of narcissists in our life or psychopaths. There I go, falling over my own words. So what I would like to ask you, David, is to specifically focus on words that the psychopath used, because apart from the actions they engage with, the words like who, me, words like that, okay, really simple, but the context in which they're used is it causes confusion. For instance, somebody smacks a child. Somebody says, that person just smacked a child. And the person says, who, me? Now suddenly everybody's confused. Who smacked the child? Okay. So David, would you give us any examples that you recall?
Well, I didn't personally experience anything. It was my other half, and I was in her reaction, and then obviously tell me said. And a lot of the things that come across, like she wasn't taken seriously. Like she would be asked for her opinion and then be dismissive about it. They throw it back at you. It's like it made her feel unwanted. And why you ask me here then? Like one of their experiences was picking out a wedding, and my other half was being accused of not, and it's like crazy. She was there saying like, yeah, that looks
David,
good and that doesn't good.
David, sorry, just at the critical point, your mic dropped. Said she was, and it was crazy. We didn't hear the critical part.
It was
wedding dress.
Should be like asked for her opinion, and then her sister would be really dismissive of it. Not being enthusiastic enough about the day or picking the dress out, and not having enough input from her.
So she would dismiss her when she gave input, and if she didn't give input, she would rebuke her for not contributing enough. Yeah, that's a covert. That's classed as covert narcissist. It's horrible.
And this is like just one incident. I mean, this thing was going on for years and years and years. And like my other half, she's always thought she was a bit funny, but she can pass it off. Until like a couple of years ago, it got really serious, and like she was like starting to physically suffer, and headaches, and migraine, bad stress. She had to go to doctor times and get MMR to see what was going on, and it's coming back nothing wrong. And then I was hearing about Lynn's situation, about he would flow the experience on to me, and I was sort of clicked, and I thought these people are acting kind of similar. It must be some sort of syndrome. Let me look at psychology. Narcissism come up, and that's when I started heavily again. But yeah, Lindsay, experience.
Over to you. I've heard parts of it, but bring it. And by the way, people, while Rory sat there patiently, we are going to focus specifically on Rory's abuse at the hands of Nathan Oakley. So if there's anybody out there that would like to run and tattle tale, you're welcome to. If you want to class this as drama, you're welcome to. That's fine. Exposing people who are doing nefarious things, insidious things, malevolent things is important in any truth movement, okay? It really is. If the person is a Bible scholar, it doesn't matter that they're a Bible scholar. If the person's a mechanic, it doesn't matter if they're a mechanic. What matters is their actions. So Lindsay's going to tell us about his experience. Everybody's heard about my experience at the hands of Patricia Steer, but then we will hear from Rory, okay? So Lindsay, off you go.
Thank you, Antonio. Yes, before I get into my story, and I'm going to be very general about it because there's a lot of details. You talked about the words, so I just wanted to just did a Google search to define the words psychopath. A noun, it means a person suffering from chronic mental disorder with abnormal or violent social behavior. Madman, mad woman, mad person, deranged, maniac, lunatic, psychotic, sociopath. An informal would be an unstable and aggressive person. A narcissist is a person who has excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. Narcissists who think the world revolves around them. And there's no doubt in my mind these two descriptions go hand in hand with each other. You know, the sort of these characteristics. The other word that I thought was interesting to sort of bring up at the moment was the word gender, because this word is now being, I suppose, changed. So to read the description of the word gender, noun, the state of being male or female. In brackets, it says typically used with reference to social differences rather than biological one. Traditional concepts of gender. So that's your traditional characteristic of what gender means, which really defines whether you're a male or female. Grammar, in languages such as Latin, French, and German, each of the classes, typically masculine, feminine, common, and neuter, of nouns and pronouns, distinguished by the different inflections which they have and which they require in words syntactically associated with them. Grammatical gender is only very loosely associated with terms of sex. The reason for talking about that is really, you're quite right, words are being changed. If we go back 100 years ago, gender would have really purely meant gender, male and female. Now it has other parameters that have been added to it, and a lot of that's to do with the movement that's going on at the moment, as you're well aware of.
The social justice warriors.
Exactly.
Yeah. One really, sorry, Lindsay, one really good point that, and I love it when this happens, when a really, really intelligent person echoes something that I've been saying. It's like, yeah, hey, I've been saying for ages that when you modify a word like art with modern art or postmodern, you're not talking about art. You're talking about something else. So the word social justice, justice itself implies social. You know, there's no justice between the animal kingdom and the human kingdom. That's not social. You know, a lion kills a person. That lion's not being antisocial. You know, you can't. The word justice already has the term social implicit. Okay, so when you have social justice, you're not talking about justice. You're talking about something else. And the third modifier to that is warrior. Okay, now, social justice warrior, that is a tribal mentality. These terms were not just thought up on in a hookah pipe smoking session. These are very cleverly crafted by people who know what they're doing. And what they're doing, in their mind, what they're doing is they're trying to destabilize society so they can remold it into a utopian society. And that's what lots of people in the flat earth were doing. They were talking about how absolutely wonderful everything would be. It's like, no, if everybody saw tomorrow that the world is flat, if everybody saw it and people quit until things changed, what there would be atrocities. There would be mass death as a consequence. And that's what's happened with every single utopian society that's been set up, including Mao's China and Stalin's Russia or Soviet Union. So back to you. I just wanted to clarify that the social justice, third wave feminism. It's like feminism has a meaning. Its original meaning was pretty much egalitarianism from the point of view of the woman. That was its original meaning. Now you modify it. Third wave feminism. Right, so you're not talking about feminism then. You're not talking about rights for women or equality between men and women. You're talking something else. In the same way that social justice is talking something else. What it's actually talking about is disruption and forcing your will on other people. That's what the social justice warriors are about.
This is the feminism beyond its to give balance back into society. It goes beyond that, and it's adopted the new word, or the added word neo in front of it, because that is what we're now witnessing, which is gone beyond bringing balance to society. In actual fact, it's as you just said, it's deliberately disruptive. It's to alter a paradigm. Now, this can be done in many ways, of course, but the way I see it is that if the world is in balance as it is at the moment, because you've got these higher energies, that is these humans, other humans, if you like, but they have a higher energies that have the capacity to manipulate our society, and they use these paradigms like feminism, like toys, like sticks would do with an ant's nest. They stir up their little, and they know how to do this, and they stimulate over a period of decades. They control this feminist movement right from the birthing of it.
Well, we have to think of what actually happened. The control that you've just pointed out is infiltration, then
yes,
control.
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
So what we're actually talking about is a form of fascism.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just anybody. Call yourself a feminist, then you're with us. Call yourself a feminist, then you're with us. This binding together, this is fascism that we're talking about.
Yes. And
sorry, go on.
No. I was going to say this has been something that's gone on before even feminism really came to the movement. There was another stimulus that society had to go through, which was chauvinism. And chauvinism, if you like, was really the reverse of feminism. It was the celebration of being a chauvinist, displaying your manliness and your manhood to the level where you become neo-chauvinist, because the powers that controlled the movement were fully aware that like anything, if you feed somebody with an addiction, and these can be emotional addictions and these can be cultural addictions, when you deliberately feed and create a zealousness, a desire, a lust for focusing on the material, focusing on having more than the other, so to speak, you then create this division within humanity to the point where you can argue the stronger will succeed and the weaker will diminish as a result of this state of mind, this so-called approach that you take. And this is, of course, the extreme end of chauvinism, because being chauvinist is essentially not necessarily saying that I'm superior, I'm equal to that of woman or female, but that by saying that I'm the role as a warrior, as you referred it as, but a warrior in as much as I know my sovereign humanity, and I know that I'm a protector as part of my role as a gender, but not in an aggressive or violent or a try and be subversive and put your power over others. It's simply to create a balance within the environment that you're existing within. So if you're married or if you've got a partner and there's children and you've got a small group of other people that are your friends, and this is the representation of who you are as your groups. So each gender partakes in participating their so-called gender strengths, if you like. They're bringing out those essences within them. But if you subvert a gender, such as what they did to the male all those years ago, this was when chauvinism was at its height. People like Bob Hope is an epitome of the ending of what was defined as pure chauvinism. And all of those programs, and this was around the Marilyn Monroe era, just the coming into the 50s and the 60s when chauvinism was truly starting to really die out. And you had these, hanger-oners, basically, these male personifications of representing the true essence of being chauvinist. Even the celebrities pushed that agenda. A lot of these, what's his name, Blue Eyes, he was definitely, what was his name, Frank Sinatra. He was definitely hooked into and pushing a particular agenda. And this was really the remnants of having a good drink, sitting at a piano bar, looking at some chick. The approach of that neo-chauvinist kind of male. And it's a sad, sorry representation of what a true male really is. It's actually quite genuinely a pathetic state of what a true male should not be representing themselves as. But because of the push of a subversive agenda, that have the will and the power and the influence and the knowledge to push this, they make this movement to suffer society, to inject this in to the point where society actually suffers as a result of this. And they keep pushing it to the nth degree until it wears away, it dies out, it diminishes, but it only diminishes because you've got another force overpowering and stifling that other agenda. It's like one is taking over the other. And along comes, just like a tidal wave or just a wave, along comes feminism. Because if you think about it, this is how I see it, those that are in control, if they're going to destroy humanity, the sovereign individual, and you understand how males, feminines, and masculines work in nature, if you like, then what you've got to get rid of is you've got to get rid of the protectors. And in order to do so, you've got to identify who is sort of who's going to carry the flag at the end of the battle, if you like, for them. Are you going to have the males carrying the flag, or you're going to have the females carrying the flag, meaning supporting you after you do all your destruction and implement your destruction. So, okay, the plan is to destroy the males first, kill their ego, kill their sovereignty as a masculine, make them doubt their own identity, suffer the consequences of what their father's actions were, and their father's fathers and so forth, based on this so-called approach of chauvinism, but this extreme neo-action, this where they're destroying each other and destroying society in order to just gain their own individual, they no longer were even focusing on being sovereign. That was their pure agenda and focus, shifted completely.
So if I can boil it down the way I see it, the people who are in control now, not all of the people who are in control, okay, we assume that there's this overall control group of families, okay, we've heard this, it's a popular meme, okay, and we think that they control everything. They don't, okay, they control certain pyramids. They have certain pyramids of influence, absolutely, but they don't control everything, which is why they need normal people to run their errand. So they need social justice warriors to cause friction and problems. This way they can flush out the people who are going to be an obstacle to their ends. Now, we have to bear this in mind. The people who are dedicated in the social engineering of humans right now, in their mind, they want to arrive at a utopia. And the utopia they want has lots less humans. A lot of humans aren't there participating in it. They want to pull down the number of humans in this world. And they put out things like the planet is overpopulated and humanity is a cancer on the planet. So we know that their intent is not benevolent towards humanity. And when you look at the real world, this world is pretty freaking harsh towards humans. There's only a very narrow band of area where humans can live, where people can live. The major part of this place, humans can't live there, not unless you want to be an Eskimo, and that's a hard life. So you have the deserts, incredibly difficult to survive in, and the frozen deserts. The Arctic's incredibly difficult to survive in, and the very steep areas, the mountains, incredibly difficult to survive in.
And the forest.
And then you've got all the extra creatures that are around. They can just, tiny little mosquito can kill you, So this idea that humanity is a disease on an organism is just a made-up idea so that people will feel an animosity towards breeding, towards seeing fellowship in man. And unfortunately, people engage in this animosity, this enmity, rather than seeing cooperation. By the way, cooperation, for anybody out there, not everybody who disagrees with you has malevolence aimed at you. In fact, the way that you can develop a stronger argument or arrive at closer to the truth is by people pointing out your errors. And if you think that somebody pointing out an error is a challenge and you're going to defend your error, not knowing it's an error because you haven't listened to what they were saying, then you're not allowing that person to point you towards the truth more. So this is why I object to some of the Bible scholars who demand that people pay attention. It's like, no, you pay attention if you want. I can point out errors in it. You can't point out errors in my book because I don't have one, apart from the Lord of the Rings. But Lindsay, I want to get to Rory. Would you tell us first your experience with narcissism? We'll circle back to words and their use and their deployment for social movement. So Lindsay, would you bring us to your experience with narcissism, and then we'll go over to Rory McFiss, who, by the way, gives really good hugs. And I say that as a heterosexual male, okay? I remember, in fact, I said this to you, Rory. My uncle, when I was a kid, my uncle was a short guy, stocky, big muscles. And this is in Franco, Spain. He beat the shit out of 2 cops one time because they stole his dog, okay? So to me, he was an absolute hero because these police were fascists and we were in Catalonia and my grandfather had been in a concentration camp. There's, animosity towards authority kind of inbred in me. Rory, when he gave me a hug, I think I told him that it felt like a hug from my uncle. So, yeah, it gives great hugs. So, Lindsay, narcissist,
Yes.
your experience.
The reason for introducing it the way I had is to, like you said something in what you were saying I agree with, which is humanity in general. If you remove all exterior negative, continuous negative influences upon you that society has, you will naturally bring yourself to a centering that will engage you to not want to do harm to another. And that generally means that we make these statements, these phrases that, dog eat dog world, or it's humans are this or that, having this failure or that failure. But the reason for me saying what I'm saying is because when I say they, I'm talking about the people that have the power and influence to move this so-called agenda. And the way in which, and the reason for giving this example the way I am, is to say that they wanted the females to witness the destruction of the male ego, if you like. And that destruction had to be, if you like, witnessed, because the witness of the destruction of that so-called male, the chauvinist male, the destruction of that, gave rise to not only the feminism, which also was supported and sponsored deliberately to create the movement and being sponsored to deliberately inject this into society. And as this happened, the state offered support to allow for the dissolvement, if you like, of the family unit. And in the 80s, I don't know the stats exactly, but I understand that in the 80s or somewhere around the 80s, 50% of marriages in Australia were going through divorce or separation. And I think there was a big spike in and around that time period where this really took hold. And this brought about, if you like, an image, a new vision of what it was like to be a grown up in society, especially in being female. And I'm not female, so I can't answer myself personally from that experience. But I can certainly say that where you've got this amplification of a desire to have an equal right, be equal to that of both male and female, which is pure feminism and also should be applauded and supported 100%, because that's what both genders are, equal.
It's egalitarianism, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, no one has the right to feel superior to another. And if you have a feeling that you should impart some level of superiority over another gender, disgust or through lust or through envy or any other form, then you're partaking in an agenda, driving you outside of what your normalcy, sovereign human condition would feel like. And this is the point, is that if you're creating traumas such as witnessing the destruction of the chauvinist, if you like, then that trauma simply means that you desire to rely on that source to be your partner. In actual fact, you lose respect of it. So you do in some way diminish it lower than you, because you can justify yourself as being perhaps morally superior. And in some way that is probably true. And then along comes feminism. And if you like, it teaches the new females that they can be little princesses and have this as a preset to their future. So if things that they envisage are not being met, then the focus of blame can be then targeted on your chosen partner. And if that's the case, then you can be driven by your development of your emotional state. And if society is bringing up the so-called neo-feminists, partly what they're doing is they're training these individuals to become narcissistic and somewhat psychopathic in nature. As a preset to their thinking, as a preset to they've lost focus on their true identity and are lost in this paradigm of mind games of what would be like to feel this way or that way, which in some degrees is no gender, but it's a mental construct. And if once you go down that path, it becomes an addiction. It's no different than what chauvinists experienced when they went into the burning down phase of the neo-chauvinist period. They went extreme. And that's because it is an addiction. It is mind salivates over. It's simply because when you lose part of your own true sovereign identity, when you give it up, so to speak, you no longer engage with the sovereign rights and wrongs of others. You engage more in what is best for you. And when you take that decision, the consequences of the person that you might do harm to is inconsequential.
There's also an extra element, which is because this is propagandized, the realm of thought that people will venture into is limited. So what you want is what is the opposite of what they want. That's like the prime ideal. And you have projected what you assume the others want. When what you just said is, in reality, the policing of each other, the correcting of each other, the wanting the best for you, if we think in terms of the true and valid function of religion, what's good for you is that other people be happy. That's what's good for you. That's, and if your reason for being a truthful person is that highlighting lies is something that is going to help other people navigate their way through life, then that's your duty. But the same with correcting people, rebuking. In the Bible, they say rebuking, okay? Telling people off. If somebody lies, if it's a child, you have to. If you just let them lie, you're creating a narcissist. You're allowing a narcissist to develop. I know a guy, I know women too, but I know people of both sexes. I know a guy who's the most psychopathic person I've ever met. On a par with you-know-who. So, and by you-know-who, I mean Patricia Steer. This guy was not corrected when he was caught in lies by his parents. I saw this. I lived next door to him when I was a kid. Okay. The guy is a complete pathological liar, and he will just make up stories that never happened to engage with a group of people and create a conflict, all focused on him and poor him, when it's something that's just been completely made up, okay? So you rebuke a child when they lie. When an adult lies, you have to do the same thing. If you don't, you're doing that adult an injustice, and you're doing an injustice to anybody else who, as a consequence of you not correcting this adult, suffers. Because the point of correcting somebody's behavior is so that they will stop doing that behavior. Now, this is not imposing your will on them.
No.
This is imposing society on them. So with the gender non-binary people who are imposing that people refer to them as ze and je and all kinds of made up words, they're imposing this. Now, for people to say, you don't have the right to impose this, that's what I refer to as correcting. They do not have that right. And if you don't do this, if you don't tell them, dude, you look like a dude to me, so I'm going to refer to you as a dude. Now, it might turn out that that person used to be a woman and now looks like a dude, and you refer to them as a dude. That's totally fine. But when you get somebody that's a blend and they say, no, well, I've not decided what I am yet, so I want you to refer to me as blah, blah. You say, fuck off. I don't give a shit what you want me to refer you as. I'm going to refer to you as you, because I don't know, or I'm going to just point. I'm not going to use a word that you've made up. You can't impose that. So there's a difference, a huge difference between imposing that people stop doing something wrong and imposing that people do something that isn't actually right. Okay, there's a big difference. One is imposing on your child that they do not lie, that they do not steal, that they do not hurt other beings, animals or humans, that they do not put metal objects in electrical sockets. All of these things, it's your duty to do. And with adults, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Just because they're adults doesn't mean you have to suddenly not say anything. If you see them lying, you have to say, what the hell? This isn't true. What are you doing? You know? And it's important that we do this. It is important. We know that there are people in government that lie, and the other politicians know that they're lying. And the only politicians that ever actually stand up and point out that somebody's actually properly lying, they end up falling off a cliff, like Robin Cook or like Dr. David Kelly. They end up dead in the forest. People who stand up and say what's right, which is this government is lying, or that department is lying, or that department is corrupt. Now, we have to be that person. We have to be the person that says this is corrupt. And I'm not saying it about any element of the flat earth. I'm saying it about individual people. Like, for instance, Nathan Oakley. Now, everybody knows Nathan Oakley and I, we got on very well for a while. And I take people at face value, okay? And it takes me a long time to see through people, especially when they have a carefully crafted facade, okay? So I'm going to bring it now to Rory, because Rory has a story, and Rory's story, unfortunately, is not a made-up story, although he could write it as a children's story. Rory, you could, oh, sorry, that rhymed a bit too much. If you wrote this as a children's story, it would be a very good story for children to read, to show what kind of behavior is not acceptable. So will you tell us what happened? In the meantime, I'm going to go and make a tea, but I can hear.
Okay. Right. So it starts off with, I went on to Nathan's video, which is about narcissists. And as we've all got on our channels, you can make a comment. Now, I assume that by allowing comments, that means you're accepting people to share their opinions on what you've just done. So I made a comment about Nathan being a hypocrite. And then I went on to say about how my feelings on people that are using advertising to earn a lot of money. Now, I'm not on about small channels because I know in society that we live in, it's hard to make ends meet. So we have to do something within the system to exist. So when I made this comment, I thought, okay, Nathan's going to come back to me and he's going to just say whatever, you know, Rory, doesn't matter. Okay. Now, we've all us people that have channels, we used to having trolls come on, and some of the language that is used is...
Sorry, Rory.
Yes.
Sorry, mate. What was the actual comment that you said? What did you say?
Okay. What I said was that I found him a hypocrite because he was telling people how to deal with narcissists. And the best way to deal with them is not to respond and so on. Then I went on and made the point about my feelings about if you advertise your channel or you have adverts in your channel, in a way, you are a hypocrite because you're using the system, which is using their propaganda and programming, and you're allowing that on your channel. Now, also in the comment, I said, this is just my feeling. This is how I feel. I never used a direct accusation at anyone. It was a generalization of my feelings. You know, I was expressing. So I expected a bit of a comeback, maybe a bit of banter from him. Not a problem. I don't have a problem. And
sorry, Rory. Some of the people listening to this will not be British and might not understand what you mean by a bit of banter.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I was expecting Nathan to come back, defending him as saying, I'm not a narcissist. Can you explain why you think I am? That's what I was expecting. But what he did, very clever. He built up this false scenario. So what he directly did was take away from the focus of what I actually said and used a false scenario to say, by what you said directly, that I should not have adverts on my channel because let me get this right. I shouldn't have adverts on my channel. So therefore, you're taking food directly from my baby's mouth. Okay, so I replied back, where did I actually say that I was talking about you? I was saying it was a feeling. He came back to me and started to say, so you say that I shouldn't earn money and feed my family. Again, nothing to do with my real comment. It was he was building this false scenario again.
It was building a straw man.
Absolutely, the straw man, absolutely. So as the comments kept going on, he started to get very angry. And because I wouldn't engage in the anger with him. And I personally think that he was hoping I would start getting angry and start attacking him.
Well, if you had done, he would have received, what do they call it? Narcissistic supply. He would have received a little burst of endorphins, dopamine, sorry. Well, actually, endorphins too.
Yeah.
From you getting rattled. And you weren't doing that. So instead, he was getting rattled. And part of what rattles the narcissist is because they know how narcissists work, is the idea that they might be being the source of supply to another much better narcissist. So if you were a narcissist, you were winning, and that rattles them and makes them inadvertently feed a narcissist even more. Now, you're not a narcissist, but this is why they get so infuriated when they try to coax sustenance, this narcissistic supply, which they actually use as a sustenance, something that keeps them going. And because you weren't doing it, they get angry. This is why they get angry. It's not just that you're not giving them the supply, it's that maybe you're a better narcissist than they, and they're giving you supply, and that makes them livid, and they want to crack you. They want to see that you are not a narcissist by you breaking down. Because
yeah, absolutely. And I suggest to everyone, if they want to go back, it's in the comments. I believe nothing's been deleted. The language that he used was the CUNT. Now, everyone knows I never swear. I've never sworn in my videos. I don't do it. I'm not against swearing. People swear, express, it's fine. But personally, I don't do it. And when you start using words like the CUNT, and then he goes and tells me to go fuck my prosthetic leg, you know, I'm thinking, what's going on here? Where's this anger coming from? And it was all coming from me not responding to his false straw man. I wasn't allowing myself to get pulled into it. This was going on the whole day. And I spent, literally a whole day backwards and forwards with him. And every time I finished my comment, I said, I wish you well and peace. And he came back with, oh, no, you're a CUNT, you fuck this and fuck that. And this was going on and on and on. And I just, in the end, it got to me. Of course it got to me. I'm human and I've got feelings. And the problem was he was attacking my disability. He had gone from attacking me to my disability. And
let me just jump in here a second, Rory. For anybody who doesn't know this already, Rory has your leg was amputated?
Yes.
Okay, from the knee down. So he has a prosthetic leg. And at one point, Rory might have he was about to involve himself with one of these false flag situations as a crisis actor, not knowing what it all entailed, just around the time of the 7/7 bombings in the UK. Now, I'm only saying this because when you have a disability like an amputated limb, one of the things which is part of what makes it valid for people to engage with drills, you have the people who engage with drills who are not amputated, who don't have any limbs missing. The reason, okay, let me reframe this. When people engage with drills, they are doing it for a good reason. They're doing it to help the authorities to deal with managing a crisis. That's why they do it. Then you have the really negative, nefarious activists who show up over and over, who know that what they're doing is being manipulated, is being turned and used against people. Now, Rory obviously isn't one of these, but one of the things that gives somebody with a disability like an amputated limb like a glimmer of positivity about it is that they can help with the drill management, crisis management situation. Okay, you are in a position where you can help in a way that most other people can't. Okay, so how does a paramedic deal with somebody whose leg is missing? How do they deal with that? Okay, you can't just have somebody there pretending that they haven't got the lower part of the leg. You have somebody without the lower part of the leg, and that would be Rory. So Rory is actually, he has a prosthetic leg. And what Nathan Oakley did, given that the comment was originally, it's a bit rich for you to be talking about narcissists. narcissist. That's what I would have, you know, you freaking narcissist. What are you doing this? Anyway, he turned that into something completely different, which was referring to his minor premise, which is, you know, basically, and also I think that advertising in your channel is a bit abusive if what you're doing is trying to bring down the system, which is pretty much what you were saying. And he makes a straw man. It's not affecting him. So he starts attacking his disability by telling him to do what?
To go fuck my leg, to go fuck my prosthetic leg, and using the CUNT word as well, again and again and again, all the way through the comments.
And what Nathan Oakley did later, because people saw this and people know Rory, and he's not a dislikable person. So Nathan must have seen a reaction. I saw a reaction of his, because I'm watching him, Martin and Patricia, watching their subs, because I know that Nathan is obsessed and Patricia are obsessed with subs. So I watch, okay? I saw a big drop at one point, and it turns out it was around this time when this happened with you. So Nathan makes a video excusing his behavior, saying I was a bit het up and blah, blah, blah. Now, when you told me about this, because I wasn't informed on the whole thing. I don't pay attention to what he does. You said to me something about when he was in the hospital, he was in hospital and whatever. And that was a really good point.
Okay, right. So someone, because I wasn't interested in his response video. I wasn't, you know, totally uninterested. But someone said, Brendan, go over and have a look. He's sort of trying to apologise. So I thought, fair enough, you know, I'm all for, it's not even forgiving, just someone to accept what they said was wrong or out of order. And I'm not there to judge anyone. So I've gone over to the video and started watching it. And within 2 minutes of watching it, I thought, hold on a minute. When he started out on the video, he started out with an excuse of excusing himself from what he said. So it wasn't an apology. It was an excuse for what he said, which isn't an apology. An apology comes from the heart, and it's deep. You mean what you say. What he was doing, he was saying, look, this is the reason why I used the words, why. And I thought to me, no. That's not what you do when you apologise. And his excuse was, I was at the hospital, my nan was whatever. And, you know, then I thought to myself, hold on a minute. You've just spent, and he said it in the video, he spent the whole day on the phone checking YouTube. Now, my problem with that is when, say, my daughter was in hospital not so long ago, the last thing on my mind is what's going on in YouTube world. I'm not interested. My family comes first and foremost. So again, to me, this shows that he's using the hospital as an excuse, yet he had the time to spend all day long getting involved with this straw man scenario.
Well,
so
both Lindsay and David will be seeing exactly what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
He made himself a victim. He said, look, guys, I reacted. I'm sorry I reacted wrongly, but you can understand, right? I was in the hospital. My grandmother was passing away. It was just an attack from someone, unnecessary. And I wasn't thinking clearly because I was so hurt and my world was in such turmoil. Please feel sorry for me and subscribe to me again. That's what
Rory.
he was doing. That's what he was doing. He was basically pleading and trying to hoodwink people into thinking, yeah, I can understand reacting like that. But when you put it in the proper framework, which is, wait, you can understand, have you made a video, or whatever, somebody having made a comment, maybe you see the comment before you leave for hospital, fine. You see the comment, you go, oh, okay. Maybe you don't even look at your comments because somebody's in hospital. Do you know what I mean? But to then be engaging from the hospital with Paula there, no doubt, going, look at what he said now. Well, I'm going to say this. What do you think of that? I'm freaking half-wit, dead-eyed Paula. I mean, sorry, sometimes I get a bit emotional, but she's got dead eyes. I've never liked people with dead eyes. You know, eyes that don't actually seem to have any life in there. There's something.
Well, she did actually comment as well.
Yeah, she's a little piece of shit too. Sorry, guys, but and this is the thing. If anybody objects to me saying those things, I'm not gonna excuse it. I'm gonna say, yeah, actually, I did say that because I genuinely think that. And if somebody objects, I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong in objecting. I have good reasons for thinking that, So, but people have good reasons to object too. I'm not going to excuse it, that's how I feel. And what you were saying about the adverts, okay, it's valid. It's totally valid. I advertise on my channel, okay, but I've explained this before. Before I advertised any video at all, YouTube was advertising my videos. I didn't know about monetizing, how to do it, or any of those things, and I didn't want to. I was very much of the attitude that no, I wanted nothing to do with that kind of thing, that financial aspect. But YouTube was advertising some of my in my videos. I'd go to respond to a comment and an advert would play. And it's like, what the hell is this? Okay. And I thought, well, if they're going to do this and try and give the illusion that I'm monetizing, I am going to monetize, and I'm going to explain why. Now, since then, I'm monetizing strategically. I've tried to encourage the Morgal to advertise strategically, which means spread the adverts out in a sequence that's not too interrupting. The same with Jaren, the same with other people, because this is the fact. We dedicate a lot of time, and that time other people can be spending making money. Okay, we can be spending making money. YouTube is going to monetize whether you want to or not, and I don't know how they get away with it. Okay, so if it's okay for me to make money by doing something that has nothing to do with increasing people's perception of the world, if it's okay for me to make money like that, how is it not okay with me making money from this? Which is the counter argument to the you shouldn't be making money from spreading the truth. It's like, would it be better if I was making money from spreading the lie? Because let's face it, that's how people do make money. We know all these newspapers and newscasters, they make money from spreading lies. The problem really,
Antonio.
So, yeah.
I was just going to say a couple of things on that, really. The first thing is...
You're breaking up, Lindsay.
That fit this particular mindset, where instinctively people have been trained, indoctrinated to not take in information from an exterior source that's not considered an expert. And that definition, if you're perceived to then be publicizing any information and getting some form of remuneration for that, money-wise, then your credibility is in question. But I've recently noticed that as I've been clicking on various YouTube channels where they never used to have any advert, they're all popping up all over the place. And I don't necessarily believe that every person that runs the channels that are out there are all of a sudden deciding to start using the adverts and placing ads. And I agree with you that if it makes sense to push something that you want out there and then people pick up on it.
Also,
and say, oh, well,
there's an extra.
It's there.
Sorry, Lindsay.
I might as well.
Sorry,
yeah,
Lindsay.
It's like walking down the street.
There's an extra element to this. Oh,
yeah.
There's feedback. There's an extra element to this, which is this. I've watched adverts in other people's channels and have been really interested in the thing being advertised, because some of the things being advertised were free energy devices. They were advertising other YouTube videos about free energy devices, about Bedini motors, generators, about a whole bunch of stuff. Seen adverts about drone deliveries, adverts about light floodlights at night, where people, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no lights, you can contact a service in the UK and they will send out a fleet of those helicopter drones with lights that will illuminate your way through the forest or the mountain or to your car. Some really interesting adverts. It's not, buy extra petrol from ExxonMobil, So what I'm doing here is what I'm doing here is I'm saying the objection that people should not make money from the truth is a little bit limited, because it either says you can only make money from spreading stuff that's not true, or as long as you're spreading truth and not getting to any point where you can be effective. Because let's face it, when I make £1,000, I'm going to be buying a P900 and a laser. That's what I'm going to be doing. So, and then making videos with that. So this is not a case that I'm doing it for some grandiose reason. What I'm going to do with it, everybody will see what I do with it. But it doesn't matter, even if it wasn't for that. Making money out of engaging with people, telling them the truth, there's nothing wrong with it. There's something wrong with making money out of telling people lies. There's something wrong with that, but there's nothing you can do about it. So unfortunately, you have to use Lao Tse, and if you can't beat them, join them.
Right. Can I I'll just finish this
yes,
Nathan thing off. One of the last comments he made to me was, I don't hear you going over to Jeren and telling him what to do with his channel. And I thought, well, that's really funny, Nathan, because I'd actually been in communication with Jeren, and we had quite a long text discussion, and he came back to me at the end and he said, I agree with you, Rory, and I do have reservations about this. But what he did, he actually had spent the time and talked me through his way of seeing things, which was really good, because after listening to what he said, I reevaluated my thoughts on it. Rather than him just coming out saying, Toss saying this, saying that, he spoke to me like a human being. And by doing so, he made me look at what I was saying, because he made me see that he spends a lot of time doing all his work, so he has to get money from somewhere. So I'm not saying when I made my comment to Nath, I was completely correct. But what he did was said, well, have a think about it this way, Rory, which I did. And I came back and said, look, I understand we all have to exist in this system and survive in this system. And because what you're doing is pushing, as you said earlier, Antonio, you're pushing the truth and the positive, and that, it made me think. So rather than attacking me, he talked to me, and he also said, he does have reservations, but he made me.
Rory, we all channels that advertise and are conscious human beings, we do have reservations, because we know the financial system is one of the things that keeps half of this world, 2/3 of this world, in poverty. We know this. I've watched the London School of Economics, and some of their most cerebral professors explaining, and get this, people, explaining why it's necessary in order for the West to be better off, for the rest of the world to be poor, and that there can't be just a little bit of a break between the two, that there has to be a chasm. They explain this, they justify it to their students, because obviously these students are people who are going to work the stock market, who are going to make a lot of money and have to justify to themselves having so much more money than a whole village in Africa, for instance. So I'm aware of this, I know this, but right now, it just isn't feasible to function in this society. We have to face up to it. We're trapped in a system. And if we rile against the system by refusing to use money, then one of the catch-22s of the system is, you can't change the system by engaging with the system. This is flawless, really. The only way that you can do anything significant at all, and it would be in an individual basis, would be to really and truly become a persona non grata, a non-money, non-financial exchanging being. And that person has no voice, unfortunately. So,
but Antonio, the fundamental truth is that seeing money in our society is not wrong. It's not wrong. The bottom line is that acquiring money using information such as truth and people connecting with that, and this is not wrong. If you're stealing from somebody, this is wrong. If you're deliberately manipulating the truth in order to exploit others, then that's wrong. And this is where society has this divide of what is right and wrong. It's an overlay. And what they classify as wrong is the expert, the people on the side of, science and all this sort of stuff. They'll turn around and say, these people that don't have qualifications, that don't know what they're talking about, is exploiting you, are vulnerable and not having this knowledge for this or for that. But this has been an agenda that's been pushed throughout, and people are waking up.
And not only
realizing,
not only this, we have to be aware of this, guys. Okay, right now I don't know of any incredibly wealthy flat earthers who are engaged in YouTube videos with adverts. Okay, but I can imagine a very wealthy flat earther engaging with videos and very quickly losing their wealth if they start to kick the hornet's nest. So
No, exactly.
it's a token for exchange, but it's also a trap. It is, okay, but you can
But
use
it's
it
only
for
a
good.
trap if you. It's only a trap if you allow it to control your motivations for doing things. If it surpasses your priorities, what your true agenda was originally, if then you start changing that agenda and you are misleading yourself, then you're using money or you're using money to control your attitude, your beliefs, the way in which you see things, your actions. That's the false behavior.
Now, sorry, Lindsay, let me give an example that's close to my heart because this comes from a family member. I have my cousin, Juan Antonio, who lives in Barcelona, a beautiful guy, survived cancer some years ago. Really good guy. Sorry, I just poked, do you know when you have a little bit of stubble and you scratch and you poke a freaking hair into yourself? It's like, ow. Anyway, my cousin Juan Antonio, he is an ironmonger and he also collects scrap. And the reason that he does this is he doesn't want to work for the man. But from being an ironmonger and an artisan, by the way, he's made some very wealthy friends because in Barcelona now there are Russian people, their background, who knows, with masses of wealth, and they like wrought iron gates and they like luxury. Anyway, he's gone from being very poor to being not so poor, but he's not stopped doing what he was doing when he was very poor. When he was very poor, he was doing anything. And in Spain, you don't have the welfare state like we have in the UK or in areas of the US, if not all the US or Canada. What he was doing was making money however he could, not stealing or anything like that, so that he could take a truck that he'd bought for only a couple of £100, or the equivalent in pesetas or euros, and he would load it up with used tires and drive it across to Gibraltar from Barcelona all the way down and go all the way across to Melilla in Spain, in Africa, but part of Spain, and down towards the Sahara and skirt the Sahara to villages where he would donate these wheels. And what they would do with these wheels was they would pack them with hay and put them on trucks. And they would use these wheels in areas where a Land Rover will survive by carrying 40 people at a time, some of them on trolleys tied to the back, from village to village, from areas, okay, with no financial exchange. He was doing this because he got a sense of well-being because he knew that these people were so incredibly poor. Now, he wouldn't have been able to do that without the initial exchange of money. Now, once it got to Africa, they didn't charge each other for these uses. They have a different mentality. So it meant money at the beginning of the situation, for which it had to bleed at times, and then a situation where money was no longer involved. It was involved in the history of the items, but not in their actual current use. So that's my mentality towards money, comes from both having seen the London School of Economics rationalizing the poverty of the third world to aggrandize the what do they call it, the standard of living in the UK and the US by having the rest of the world in poverty. I have that view. I'm Libra, by the way, so I try to look at things or find a balance. And then I also have the other side, which is my cousin and what he was doing. So money is not an evil thing. It's how you use it. It's what you do with it. It does come from entities that we can say are evil. But those entities, if we think that the Rothschild, if we think, this is a thought experiment, imagine that you're speaking to the head of the Rothschild family, okay? Imagine you're in a cafe, no security, you're not forced to be there, you're not going to be killed at the end of it. You just happen to be having a conversation with a gentleman that turns out to be the head of the Rothschild family. And I say gentleman because they are patriarchal. So even though they're Jewish, therefore a matriarchal society, because Judaism is matriarchal, just in case anybody didn't know. You're talking with Mr. Rothschild. Do you think for an instant that he would not be able to put a good point across with the money that he's engaged in making? All he has to do is point out the areas in which it helps, and you have no argument. And you can't say, well, wouldn't it be better if it didn't exist? You can't. There's no, it's The reason we have money is that it's a powerful, powerful idea. And unfortunately, what you were saying, Rory, I was with you. I was like, advertising, absolutely no way, until they started advertising for me. But let's rest the whole advertising thing, which was Nathan Oakley's little build of a straw man. That's what he was doing and engaging with you with.
But
When
what
you
Jaron did, he highlighted the difference between the two types of people. Jaron was prepared to talk to me and get me to see from a different angle, whereas Nathan wasn't prepared to talk because he would rather it be about him. And, you know, it's always about him. This is what for me it keeps coming back to. Rather than engaging with me, he couldn't do that. He had to use an attack to get me again riled up. Oh, you haven't spoken to Jaronism. And so, yeah, it was quite obvious.
Well, I can tell people this, and I'm pretty sure that David and Lindsay would support me on this. Not that support is always good. Sometimes a little bit of challenge is better. Damn it, I just distracted myself with that little thought about the challenge. It's gone. It will come back.
It's my orbs. They'll come back to you.
Oh yeah, we were on a hangout with. Oh yes, this is what I was going to say. To anybody out there who's messaged me asking if they can mirror any videos of mine, anybody is welcome to mirror any videos of mine. You don't have to ask anybody at all, and you're welcome to make parodies of them. You're welcome to do whatever, as long as you don't use them to mislead, like editing to make people say things they didn't say. Okay. As for what you were saying, what I was going to say is Lindsay and David would both say, yes, this is pretty much true. Narcissists, one way that you can spot a narcissist is if you're out, if you have a circle of friends and you see a friend, okay, so one of these friends is a person that comes to you with an idea. And you think, oh, well, interesting idea. But that's it. They don't embellish on it. They just kind of give you an idea. And they say things like, if you ask them about it, they say, oh, it kind of works just somehow, you know, they just don't give any details. They don't give any background detail to how they arrived at that idea. And you later see this person associating with your friends and you and somebody else has a novel idea. Then you know, excellent. And later, at some other point, you see person one tell person two's idea as if it was their own. And when they're asked about it, they say, oh, it just kind of works somehow. This is how you know this person is a narcissist, because a non-narcissist would say, yeah, Jeremy said to me, dude, you know, this Archimedes screw, it pulls the water up and feeds this is what a normal person does, okay? They give a background. They say, somebody told me. They say who, you know, they say how they arrived at the idea. What Nathan Oakley does and what Patricia Stead both do, I've seen them do it, and it's so unfortunate, they say something as if it was coming from them that is verbatim what was said to them by somebody in an interview or by somebody in a hangout. They do this and they don't say, oh yeah, David Wise said this, or yeah, political hillbilly made this point. They don't do that.
Antonio, they don't think that's anything wrong in doing that either.
No, and they don't think that people, this is one thing, they don't think people are sharp enough to notice, and they think that if people do notice, they will be too cowardly to point it out. Because when people point it out, then the people are attacked by the flying monkeys. Flying monkeys is a term that refers to those people who are enamored, those people who are actually feeding the narcissist with narcissistic supply, because the reason they feed the person is it makes them feel a little bit important. They don't see themselves as feeding the narcissist. They see themselves as supporting a weak person that's being attacked. Usually this is the card the narcissist plays, okay? Woe is me. So those people see the narcissist as somebody who's attacked wantonly for no good reason. They don't hear the reasons for the attack. Even if they are spelled out, they don't hear them. Instead, they just see the person that they love, in this hypothetical love that they have, is being attacked. So they defend this person. They attack the person who's saying, hey, Nathan, you lied. So Poncho Pete, Nathan Oakley went on Poncho Pete's with Paula and just outright lied. And Poncho received abuse from this later. And this is what happens. You get abuse when you rebuke someone. So I brought, we were on a hangout the other day at Hillbillies, Rory, and I thought, This is going to be about words and the importance, the power of words. You have a lot of power with your words. And if you don't use your power with your words for good, then better you don't use them, because you might be using them for bad. So if your intent is to protect someone without actually knowing properly why they might be being attacked, then you might be a flying monkey. And this applies to anybody who might defend me. If there's anybody out there that might defend me from somebody attacking me without actually paying attention to what the attack is, then please don't, you know. I don't know. I don't engage in that kind of thing. Loads of people who have been on Patricia Steer's show after she and I split up, do you know, when I say that, my heart just fills with warmth. Lots of people went on her show, and lots of them said to me, hey, I've been invited, you know, kind of, and I could see that they were feeling like, oh, I don't know what to do. I'm like, dude, have fun, because there'll be other people there that you can interact with and network. I would never tell people not to, you know, and I haven't. It's not me.
Yeah, this is the other problem, association, and who should tell who, should be friends with who or interact with who. And people have got to learn to step back from that if I wish to talk to someone, I will talk to them. And I've seen this happening really quite a lot lately, where by association people are being condemned.
Yeah, and we also have to think of this, okay? Because first, the flat Earth is although it's the most stable ground that you could have, is metaphorically it's unstable. There are a variety of different avenues along which people can go. They can go the Zach, the Steve Torrens, and the anonymous people, by the way, because some of us, we're not so mega capable that we find these incredible things to talk about. Some of us get contacted by people who are anonymous and wish to remain anonymous, who say, dude, have you had a look at this? Say, what the hell? You look at it's something you weren't expecting, you didn't know was something available. Okay, so that happens to people like me and Zach and Steve Torrens and other people out there. People bring us stuff and say, look at this. I have a guy from, Zach and I are in a chat with a guy from Argentina who's been recording the sun at sunrise and sunset. Okay, so we'll be making a video about this. Now, you know, to see the orientation, is it from the southeast or not? So there are people that support us by coming to us and saying, dude, have you seen this? Please keep me out of it, okay? So we do keep them out of it. And other people who say, have a look at this, like Plain Neto, the guy who said to me, I'm taking this flight, watch what I give you. And that was a video I made about Max Egan and the flight from from Miami to Quito. So the networking that happens is positive. Now that avenue of looking and investigating and finding things about the real world is one avenue. Another avenue is the structure, the possible structure of for instance, a conference. What will a structure like that achieve in society with real human beings? So there's the social aspect, there's the more scientific aspect, there's the more philosophical aspect. So there are various different avenues to take. And when there are various different avenues to take, your feet can be paralyzed because you don't know which way to go. You don't know what to do. This is what I mean by the ground being a bit unstable on the flat Earth. Now, because it's unstable, it's very easy for narcissists to come in and cause trouble, okay? So it's easy for somebody to say, hey, I saw you talking to that person and that person says something nasty about me. I'm not going to talk to you. It's like, no, how about you be an adult? So that person talks to that person. It's none of your business, you know? If you have a problem with that person, have a problem with that person. For all you know, this guy was saying to that guy, I thought what you said was really nasty. But if you jump to the conclusion that because they were talking, there's some cahoots, it's like, no. And this is what I'm trying to, why I'm having this specific hangout. We have to be aware that the words people use have meaning. We know this, and the words that we use have meaning. And we have to study and watch carefully that we don't do stuff that's inadvertently going to cause damage that you don't want to cause. Okay, now I personally want to cause damage to reputation, to his integrity, to Nathan Oakley. I really do, because I think that deep down, he's not a bad guy. And I want him to break and then put himself together, noticing that it's not fair to abuse people with disabilities. Now, there isn't an excuse that says, oh, it's okay. If you're a bit bothered, then it's okay to abuse someone with a disability. No. So my intent really is, and it will cause him a whole kind of headache, okay? And he might actually hear that I would like him to break so he can pull himself together properly. Now, I don't think I have that power. I'm not that grandiose, but I can try, you know? You have to try to fix people or help them to be fixed. And this is one of the things that Jordan Peterson is explaining with the social justice warriors. You have to be able to at least show them the pitfalls of what they're doing. If you don't show it to them, you're doing them a disservice, even though they're your enemy. You're doing them a disservice. So anyway, there you go. Back to you, Rory.
I don't really have much more to say, but I think, you know, he highlighted himself for what he was doing, and it was so apparent. And that's why even today I was on Hillbillies actually in the chats, and Nathan come in the chat, and I typed out if he was willing to, you know, by all means face me face to face or even online chat and talk to me man to man. Didn't even come back with any comments. So
this tells you, you see, this is what tells me that deep down, there's a person that's suffering out of this. And this is why I think there's somebody good. I think deep down, most people, and this might be because I have a Catholic background, okay, that deep down, there's a possibility for everybody to save themselves or to improve themselves. Because what they do when they improve themselves, they improve their quality of life, and they improve the quality of life of the people who engage with them by simply treating them more nicely, you know? It's not difficult. It isn't difficult to respect other people. And if he didn't engage
I won't deny I was absolutely shocked, Antonio, when I started seeing the language being used. I was really shocked.
Yeah, well, no wonder. I mean, I've received I don't know, there are people out there much wiser than me who choose not to make videos and don't get the kind of abuse. But some of the abuse that we get, you have to think of this. Okay, there's one of you and there's a multitude of people. Some of those people have multiple accounts. So as far as you know, is a smaller group or a much larger group. You don't know. But these people use language in lots of different ways. You have the Gertrude Perkins, who will use very elaborate concocted arguments, and you have the Jem Pandas, and you have all those characters. And then you have these anonymous people who will come, and these people are trained. They're not people who are very highly qualified in psychology and have chosen to be abusive to you. Because chances are, if they're so highly qualified in psychology, they would either know that it's not going to achieve what they intend, or they wouldn't really be wasting their time, okay? And they use very well-crafted, abusive statements, like targeted, specific, a whole range of different things. And they do this to try to put people off. Part of the reason they do this is so other people will see this and be discouraged from contributing. So the whole exchange that you had with him, I take it that part of the reason you were writing it was so that other people could see it and say, actually, I disagree with him doing a thing about narcissists, because really what he's saying is, it doesn't matter if somebody's calling me a narcissist, they are a narcissist, and what I'm doing is, I'm not engaging, that's why I'm not responding back. So, yeah, like we can't see through that. So the comments that he said to you, he messed up big time. And he knows he did. It came on the back of him going on Poncho Pete's, didn't it?
Yeah.
So he messed up on Poncho Pete's. He knows I'm watching like a freaking hawk too, and it's not going to happen now. But I was waiting for one more piece of evidence before prosecuting him for defamation of character. Just one more, and I would have had his house, you know, and his daughter, and I would have taken the food from his daughter's mouth. His mum and dad would have had to give the daughter some food.
Well, I did actually look up after we had the exchange to see what the actual law was about abuse, because there is now a law in the UK, an online law, that deals with direct abuse of disability. And I could have gone down that road, but I don't want that. I want people to, like you said, if there's hope and if there's a good person in there somewhere, I hope he finds it. I really do, because I don't want to see people self-destruct or be destructive. I want people to...
Rory?
Yes, Lindsay?
Can I throw in a couple of thoughts here, both Antonio and you, Rory, because it's a difficult thing to say this. Looking for someone's inner truth about who they are, the better character of a person, when they've engaged in the reaction that they've given you, that the same person's given you, Rory, the way in which it was cursed, it was swearing, it was quite violent as much as the language is concerned. The point is that of sort of vitriol, if you like, is meant to anchor an energy, negative energy, that they can feed off from that point. So to continue the saga that has been instilled from that anchoring point is part of this process. This energy that's being expelled right now, to discuss this, to engage with it, to allow it to continue to resonate, our energy, thoughts, and all this sort of stuff. They do this, that anchor point, maximize the amount of flow of energy from as many participants as possible. And it does it in a way that is deliberately going to hurt, whether or not you deny it, you admit it, whether or not you read it and you just put it off and go, oh wow, it's just been... No, coming from a place of your own understanding of truth, and you're connected with that, and you get that information, it comes across and it hurts. And because it hurts, and they know it hurts, they also know that there's a possibility that this then could, like a mushroom, is going to blow up and become something bigger than they even anticipated. And they relish any of this energy, whether it's negative, whether it's focused upon them, whether or not they are being attacked from other people. This is all partly caused by that deliberate attack. And they were looking for somebody to be critical, to be able to use that as an attack. And so this whole saga feeds off itself, and it just gets bigger and bigger. There's a mushroom that just grows and it grows and it grows. And I'm not suggesting that it shouldn't be discussed or it shouldn't be analysed, to then come up and suggest our intention is to pass goodwill onto a person that has inflicted actual damage to us, is submitting to that energy to some degree, because it's that energy that needs to be stopped, not the person that's created it. The person that's created it is totally 100% responsible for that person's actual action, for deliberately going overboard the way he did. And I'm not just analysing this one person. This is a reflection on anybody who wants to maintain an attack on somebody deliberately, because this creates this mushroom. So the point I'm getting at, really, I suppose, is that the individual that took this action did it for a purpose, and this purpose is now mushrooming. It's done its business. It's succeeded, and it will fade out and peter off at some time, but the energy will be zapped and absorbed as much as possible whilst it's active. Now, whether or not our actions now are going to all of a sudden make this other person who did this action in the first place come to some kind of awakening and realization, oh shit, I've got to change my ways. Fuck that. It's not up to us to make that position that we take when something like this happens. When something like this happens, in reality, it is an insult. It's a slap in the face. And the reaction to that should be, fuck you, that was bad. That's, end of, but piss off.
Lindsay, you're totally right. I totally agree with you. There's one thing, though. There's an element from which you can look at this, which is that mushrooming that they wish for, that they're aware of, that they're trying to create. By saying, you know what? My reaction is, I hope you get better. Bye. That is equivalent to spraying salt on mushrooms. It just dissolves. It's gone. Vincent P., thank you. I've invited Vincent. He's told me that, watch out for sniping, because before, when I was sharing the, I don't know what I shared, but yeah,
Just hang on, Link. I'll be here for a moment.
Thanks, Vincent. Also, Chris Truthseeker, Skype, if you want to jump in. Chris Truthseeker is really good at. He used to work the doors, okay? So he knows how to work the doors. So I'm passing him a link. But yeah, Lindsay, what you're saying is right. Yeah. We're not saying we're going to put a lot of effort into trying to heal you. No, we're saying, actually, I'm severing those entanglements that you wanted to feed from and tying a knot in them, and I'm pulling it. And it's going to smack on you. If you heal out of it, so be it. But that's as much mind as we're going to pay for it, or I'm going to pay to it. If you don't mind, guys, I'm going to go back to the main focus of this, which isn't calling people out. It's to, first of all, to encourage people to go and watch Jordan Peterson. He's not a flat earther, okay? I might, at some point in the future, if things go well, be hosting a hangout with him, where I will not be trying to push the flat earth to him. What I will be doing, if this happens, is I will try to see if between he and I, we can formulate a way of unthreateningly bringing the new consciousness to people that can help to investigate how this world runs. Because once people realize that the whole scarcity overpopulation thing is completely nuked, doesn't exist, is gone, the likelihood, not for a utopian world, but for a much more smoothly running world is likely to increase. And this is the thing. In the flat earth, at the beginning, not at the beginning, a few months in, there was this delusion. I saw it, and I tried to point it out when I did the outing of Patricia Stay, because she was bolstering this. If everybody works together and has me at the center, and we all work together, we can arrive at this beautiful, beautiful, lovely world with me at the center. It's like, no, this ideology, this beautiful world, this heaven on earth of the Bible, the idea of it is dangerous. Now, I'm not saying it's beyond the, divine mystery to do something like that, but it's beyond we humans, because we have this ego that we need to survive. And I genuinely mean that. We need our ego to survive. The ego is a function of the mind to recognize patterns so that we can navigate our way through life without falling off cliffs or walking out in traffic or hitting people that might kill you by accident, okay? I mean, hitting them by accident and they kill you on purpose. So the ego is there for a reason. It's a legitimate reason. Now, all the talk about people being all ego this is when the ego has taken over the id, or the true you that's inside that wants to minimize suffering, increase happiness. This being, this part of you, the part of you that would listen to the talk about a utopian future, that part of you, your ego has to keep in check, because, and unfortunately, by your ego keeping it in check, it can also take over and say, yes, we could arrive at a utopian world with no suffering, as long as I was in charge with my ideas and nobody challenged them, because I could just kill them if they challenged them. So the idea of a utopian future is a mistake. It is a mistake. It has been tried and it has failed disastrously with millions, with 100 million deaths out of as a consequence of the utopian thinking, not as a consequence of an error in that thought, as a consequence of the functioning. So if we're going to go from the state that we have now to a state where people are well educated on the true nature of the world, where society works with less corruption and less malevolence, because we do have malevolence out there. If we're going to arrive at that, we're going to arrive at that without causing problems like making people afraid. So, for instance, making globalings afraid, making financial institutions afraid, making infrastructure entities afraid. That's not a good way to go. Now, even if you take the most nasty criminal, okay, and we all can conceive of a nasty criminal and the kinds of crimes that that person would do, to engage with them through fear is not the best way to deal with them, okay? Like, to increase fear is not the best way. the best way is to engage with understanding. If you can make a criminal understand the damage that he's caused. My brother-in-law was a young offending officer. He said when some of the offending youths were given a choice, they could go to, prison pretty much for young people for a certain amount of time, or cut that time and make it shorter by apologizing for their actions once they've thought about it. The people who did that, first, they served less time, but the officer, in this case my ex-brother-in-law, who would take them to the victim or arrange for the meeting, the person who'd done the crime that apologized was in bits afterwards. Every single time they were crying, they were trying to keep themselves together and just bursting out crying because they've been made to understand. So understanding and arriving at understanding is much better than forcing. So we want NASA to close down. Okay, but do we want them to close down with egg on their face so that they can go and set up something else to achieve some kind of revenge? Or do we want them to close down from an understanding point of view that they're not actually necessary? They're not needed. They don't need to keep pushing this idea in order for humanity to behave. They don't need to do that. Wow, I'm really talking a lot.
I'm going to go for a coffee now and a smoke, so I'll be back.
Okay, enjoy. So the crux of what I'm saying is, mind how you use language. Go and listen to Jordan Peterson. He's not a flat earther. He uses the word globe a lot. It doesn't matter. Don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Although that's one of these things like dog eat dog world. Nobody would throw a baby out with a bathwater. What are you doing leaving a baby in a bath anyway? You don't do that with babies. Come on, let's stop using this language, he says, having just used it. You have to take what's good and trim the pieces that are just, that are not actually consequential.
Language, Antonio, keeps us defined in a state of mind. And what you're talking about as well is the use of that language to keep us on that agenda that's been externally forced upon us. We think about things a lot, and the things we think about are external things because we have to plan for things. Letters come in, we have to deal with them, we have to pay our bills, we have to go to work, we have to think about socializing with our friends but because everybody is socialized, that conforms to rather than their true nature, more often than not, their true nature is really hidden. And it's hidden because they understand the outside world is dangerous. And they get taught this right from early stages. And they even witness this happening throughout their lives. Maybe it happens in their own family, maybe it happens with their relatives or their friends, but something happens which triggers them to see the world as more dangerous. And so from that mindset, you then develop this adult attitude in people. And when I say victimless, if you're committing a crime, which is, I call a crime an action that goes against sovereign nature, so stealing from somebody or murdering somebody or doing harm to somebody else in one way or another, albeit, material or not, stealing, in other words, coming from a mindset that it's okay to do this, then in essence, you're behaving in an attitude that there's no victim involved in this exchange. And so all you're doing is partaking in a mindset that's been instilled in you because you see the world as being dangerous. And through that fear, you protect yourself by enacting this attitude that there's no victim involved with what I'm doing. So if I go out and act an act of crime or hurt another person, driven by society's paradigm, which is I'm only getting what I deserve.
This is what you're saying about the victimless crime, the attitude in the mind of the criminal that there's no actual identity there that's being violated through your crime.
Exactly, that's it.
Somebody has, I think am I causing echo? Oh, no, not now. Okay, this is one of the most dangerous ideas. This is why the enemy is always dehumanized. The soldiers, when you have a civil war, the majority of the shots that are fired miss. I mean, the majority of shots fired in any war miss. But when it's a civil war, the percentage is much, much higher because they know that the other person is also a Croatian or also a Spaniard or an Iberian.
And Antonio, break down that word soldier, SOL, soul, die, DIE. So that word soldier down, it actually means your soul is already dead.
Yes.
You've given up your soul.
Yes. Now, this is with the words, okay? This is about words. The words that are spoken as an incantation by the criminal, which are, there is no actual victim there. That's just a being, but not the kind of being that I am. That's a different kind of being. What I'm doing is what I require. That person doesn't require. All of the rationalizations that the criminal gives to themselves to validate their crime, and all of them do this, even if it's just I wanted to. They're saying that their wanting to is good enough reason.
Well, I'll give you one validation of what you're talking about. There is, and I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you've got £1 billion and you're showing it a little bit by you've got a large property and your actual business frontage is in the high street, all this sort of stuff. So you're promoting your wealth. Create an envy in a individual and sees the corporate, if you like, as a snake, so like feeding off you, but you're not giving any back. So that level of resentment, a misguided anger towards that focal point. I'm going to go and smash a window. I'm going to cause havoc against this person. So now I'm going to picture myself, I'm the billionaire sitting in there, and I'm doing this deliberately. Now, I know that this is going to cause envy and resentment, but that's what I want. I want to cause anger. So if I break a few windows in my billion-pound building and a few smashed windows and a bit of rioting, a bit of arresting and all of this, so I'm sitting in my high tower. I don't care. I love this because this is what I want. Because I gain from this. I benefit from you coming and smashing in my window.
Well, look at the language that's used. Minions, plebs.
Oh, absolutely.
Masses.
The point I'm getting at here is the act of your smashing the window in resentment towards capitalism, for example. And this is like, well, that act, you're acting wrong. In other words, if you're the sovereign human and you're looking at somebody else behaving in this way and you join in, what are you joining in for? You're behaving wrong. There's no that is going to modify or change that billionaire's behavior, and they're going to actually delight from the fact that they've modified your behavior to become something they necessarily want to really be.
Do you remember?
And you can almost,
Lindsay. This is totally supports what you're saying. Do you remember the financial the riots that happened regarding the financial collapse here in London, in the US? Occupy Wall Street, Occupy St. Peter's Square, I think it was. The city, they tried to occupy the city, and the city said no, go and occupy over there.
yeah.
Where we had pictures of people with champagne watching the masses in cravats, and oh, look at the little minions. This is the important thing. The language is not just something that we use with our mouths. We know we have interpersonal communication that's non-verbal, all kinds of gestures that we do. But the thought of the victimless crime, this is what criminals use to enable themselves to commit a crime and justify it to themselves. Now, this isn't to justify in the eyes of truth or in the eyes of the divine creator or mystery. It's not for that reason. It's simply to appease themselves so they can sleep at night. Now, because we see that when they're made to apologize, or when they're told you will receive a reward from apologizing, but sincerely, when they do that, they are mortified. So we know that they do want to appease themselves. Now, this is the thing. The no victim behind the object, which is the crime, the person being criminalized, the recipient, the victim, okay? The victimless victim, which is what this would boil down to, like in philosophical terms, that's a paradox. There can't be a victimless victim. So what they do is they shift the argument and take it down a different avenue. Now, this is very important. In war, you always have the enemy dehumanized so that there is no human victim. The reason for this is, as I was saying with civil wars, we are humans, we see other humans, and involuntarily, we do not want to hurt them. In fact, and I say involuntarily because if you're told to shoot someone, you might want to shoot them, but we have this reflex that will aim high. Now, this is one of the most dangerous things about the globe mentality, especially the game theory. The what's it called, Lindsay? The game hypothesis, the game theory version of life. What's it called?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head either at the moment.
It's part of what Mark Sargent used to discuss a lot. David, you know.
Simulation?
That's it. This is the most sinister thing, the most insidious thing about simulation theory, which, by the way, because the cerebral people are extra cerebral, they call it simulation hypothesis because it's not quite a theory. Okay. Mark Sargent shared a 3-hour talk with me one time, just through Skype. He passed me this thing. I watched it. I fell asleep part of the way through, so I watched it again. It's just so much gibberish. But the most dangerous part of that is that it says to anybody who might already have the kind of proclivities that wants to eliminate the humanness in any victim, it says to them, there is no human there. Neo, there is no spoon there. That's the trick. This is what simulation theory does. It tells people there are non-player characters, and there is no way of distinguishing which characters out there are being played by a soul, just like you're a soul playing your own character. There is no distinguishing between them because even the non-player characters will respond in the same way that a character being played by a soul of some type would respond. Now, this is the ultimate dehumanizing, psychotic theory. It genuinely is. It says there is no true consciousness. That's the bottom layer. Now, we know that scientists, especially physicists, struggle with consciousness because it leads them down the avenue that ultimately leads to a divine consciousness, a prime consciousness. They have a problem. They can't quantify it. They can't measure it. They don't know its source. They know it's not located in the brain. They can't grapple with it. It's one of those things that vexates them. And their hypothesis, their simulation theory does away with it as if it isn't here, as if that consciousness doesn't exist. So if you're torturing someone and they're screaming, that's just part of the programmed game. There's no person there suffering, screaming. It's just a response from that kind of rendered creature. This is part of what I mean about language.
It's the same as what they did with ether.
Yes, they just got rid of it because it scuppers their plans. What did you say, David?
Yeah, it's a dangerous line of thinking.
It is. In fact, it's literally psychotic. Like genuinely psychotic. People. So certain psychotic people, psychosis is when the illusion that's perceived by the mind of the psychotic person is indistinguishable from the reality that's perceived by them. So the barrier, the filter that's there, one of Huxley's filters, one of the doors of perception, is just left wide open and they cannot distinguish. So what some psychotic, not all psychotic people do this, in the same way that not all people with schizophrenia have the same kind of schizophrenia. Some psychotic people eliminate a portion of humanity as them being not real because they have experienced really non-real people that they figured out weren't real because when they went over to touch them, they disappeared or whatever. So they project this and they say some people interact with doors. They look like they're real. There just must be an upgrade of the one that just appears to be real but is insubstantial. That must be some kind of clone. And here we have the clone idea that we have right now, which is you might think that you're you, but you might be a cloned version of you. It's like, no. This leads down and supports the game theory, the simulation hypothesis. The cloned human being in a game, you don't know whether a human being might be an actual human being or a cloned version that has no soul, that has no consciousness. These are dangerous terms and dangerous ideas, and we have to consider this. So the next time you're discussing simulation theory with somebody, you have to calmly, without any kind of challenge, explain to them that consciousness is a real thing that has actually been established, not just by experiential means or, empirical evidence, but by tests. There are tests out there that have determined that consciousness is not just an illusory phenomenon, but a real phenomenon. You have to point this out to people who believe in simulation theory, and you have to point out to them that endorsing simulation theory ultimately leads to the idea that real human beings with real consciousnesses are merely characters, that they're insignificant, that it doesn't matter what you do. You can just push them off cliffs if you want. Nothing matters. Okay? It's a dangerous idea.
It's a mindset that takes you away from your own sovereign identity, and it gives you the permission to behave in a way that denies you the opportunity to reset yourself back into that position. And it is interesting that, if you look at source right from the early days, it's always telling when you get a child, 4 or 5 or something like that, and you sort of play a game with that child and they understand the rules of a game. And so if you cheat, if you deliberately win the game, and they notice that it's because you've cheated, the wrongness in which that action you've done, they feel that wrong has been done to them. And it's a legitimate reaction because they've not been conditioned or trained to eliminate that sensation and counter it with a higher level of desire to win and not be in that position. Therefore, learn to cheat, and therefore justify cheating as a way of winning and that becomes your mindset as you evolve into life, because you get the.
That's one of the purposes of education.
Yes.
So when you have a child, and like you're saying, the child will perceive there's something wrong, even if they don't know the word cheat. They will see that something not right has happened, and they will protest. A child will also take a toy and imbue that toy with a consciousness. They will give themselves the illusion, they'll trick themselves. They know they're tricking themselves, into that favorite toy having a personality, having a consciousness that they can engage with. Yeah, this is why when a toy falls and it doesn't break, certain children, this is between the age from 4 and over, they will react like if a sentient being has fallen, and they will in fact go, "Oh, you okay?" And they're actually meaning it. They're not play acting for the benefit of the adult. So these things are driven out both the compassion. Now, compassion is good, but as long as it ends at that compassion and not becomes a driving motivator, and the spotting the dirty trick, those things are driven out of the student at school when the student points out.
And the key, Antonio, what you just said, the key is once you begin trying to categorize various emotions or various behaviors or various reactions, finding that person's personality. This is the external influence that you impose on that person's will. And this child who is trying to experience the world from within for the first 6 years of that person's life only receives all of this information, and they react as if they're a sovereign human, because that's how they only can react in that environment. That's their nature, their natural behavior. But by the time they get into their 7, 8, 9-year-old ages, they start to develop the methods of interacting with their outside world, and they then start to recognize the difference between something that is not necessarily living and something that is animated. So like a doll, they realize is not real in the sense that it didn't carry real life in it, but a cat or a dog or a mouse or a guinea pig or a rabbit, that's real and that's living. And so they change their attention as they develop this other personality part of their alpha wave, I think it is, or one of the waves that it starts coming into their manifestation. It's what establishes also their ego. So if you're being influenced right from the very onset of how to react and behave to an outside world, then all of a sudden you're going to pick up at these traits of survival tactics or skills to engage with the outside world. And when you're doing wrong in any situation and you're not aware of you're doing wrong because you don't see it as wrong. For the whole of your life, you've never seen it as a wrong behavior. And it's part of your inner life. It's part of you, how you exist and how you live. And the problem I see is that most people allow themselves to be defined by naming certain characteristics about a personality of a person. You know, this person is caring, compassionate, loving, hateful, bitter, angry, or the so-called labeling, defining different traits of a person. This might help a person observing somebody, but it doesn't help the individual understand their own inner true self. Being overwhelmed throughout their entire life with all of these overlays, as you put it, these overlays of what is true and what is not true, deep down underneath, they're not able to engage with their true self and take that truth, the so-called bullshit.
This is what people
made them.
This is when people in their mid-30s, 40s, or even younger than that, when people say they're going to travel the world and they want to find themselves, this is what they're referring to, this finding themselves. Now, we've used the word sovereign being and sovereignty. For anybody out there who's not familiar with this, it's a legitimate word. And it's a simple meaning. Now, it's a profound, simple meaning, but it's simple nonetheless. It means a self-determining subject. You are your own subject. So in the way that Bill Hicks had the joke about the LSD, the person on LSD determining that we are all part of God's dream. We are a subject. We are our own subject. Now, when we yield to another entity's demands, and that entity usually would be another human being with their own sovereignty. When we yield to that person, we've yielded our ability to say no. Now, when we do this, if we're not aware that the majority of people who want you to yield to them, they don't have sovereignty to which they want you to yield. They are programmed by propagandists. So people who insist that you not call dwarfs, they don't have any actual real requirement that you not use those words. They are just behaving like that because they have been programmed, and they then become propagandists for the political correct idea. So it's important that we all know we have the right to say no all of the time. We have the right to say yes. The rights that we have, we don't have as a walking being. We have as a sovereign being. It is to that sovereign being that we have to pay attention. It's the will of that person. This is Nietzsche's will to power and will to truth.
Antonio, one of the other things, sovereign, you have every right to travel. Now, that's a different definition from being in a vehicle and driving. You have every right to be in a vehicle and travel. And under those conditions, you have, as long as you rules, you have every right to travel. Basically, you should not be stopped or hindered or for traveling. You know what I mean? There's a difference. Absolutely. But if you're driving, that means you're going from one destination to another, and you're under legal law then, and then you're under those laws.
Well, this is one of the things, this is how cunning it is. When you have a vehicle, a car, okay, it's not just a car, it's a car and a light goods vehicle. LGV, that's what you have. So when the policeman stops you, even if the policeman knows that you have the right to travel, him in his role, he's there to make sure that anybody who's traveling using a light goods vehicle, whether or not it is carrying goods at that time, it might be on its way back from having carried goods. And this is how they rationalized it, because we have to know that when people do bad things, when those people themselves are not bad, the reason they're doing those bad things is they don't understand the implications of what they signed up to. So most policemen sign up so that they can find their missing child, so that they can help the situation. They don't sign up so they can be dressed in armor with a shield at a protest of people that they actually agree with. That's not why they sign up. And I would say that's the majority of people. The majority of soldiers don't sign up so that they can kill people. The majority of soldiers sign up so that they can defend people. This is the mentality, and this is how it's programmed. It's through words. It's the communication that's engaged with. So if you had films where any nation's own soldiers were killing and raping and burning, people would drop out of the army. If every film that involved with the armed forces of the United Kingdom Corporation were having them depicted as complete nasty pieces of things, conscription would drop. And this is what happens. So we have formulaic ways of coaxing people into pushing propaganda. Now, we know that globelings have this programmed reaction to combat, to engage with and try to naysay other people that turn out to be better informed than them. They have this, and that's not because they've decided at a young age that they would believe a lie and push that lie. It's because they were tricked into it, and they're convinced that they are right and flat earthers are wrong. So they have been propagandized. This is one of the things that Jaron works so hard to explain to people. NASA is a propaganda device.
Antonio, you say they, but can I ask you, weren't you once one of those they?
That's exactly it. So none of us chose to believe a lie. And all of us who believed in...
But you can see the words that have been used to manipulate your own mind to keep you fixed in the globalist round world manifestation and thinking. And now you can see the difference between the two, because you're now looking at the disc world, from the flat perspective. And two, you're being able to observe it even from a third position. You can even take those two and look at them and observe and see them for what they really are.
And there's an extra element, which is we have the experience of having been wrong. So when we're looking at the phenomena,
yes, exactly,
and we're looking at something that's pointing to flatness, anybody that has any kind of consciousness about them will be saying, am I seeing this wrong? Because we saw the globe and we saw that wrong. So are we seeing the flatness wrong? Am I misinterpreting what the world is presenting?
But this is what makes it all. This is what makes the whole process so interesting, is that you can see the difference. And because you can see the difference, it becomes clear how easily...
Wait, you've broken up, Lindsay. You said you can see how easy
it is for the world to be deceived. Hello? Can you hear me?
I just got a message from Chris. Okay, Chris. You can see how easily you can be deceived. Absolutely. In fact, Yeah. This is something that I think might be part and parcel of the programming. Okay, Santa Claus. If we think Santa Claus, most of us believed in Santa Claus, and then we had told to us Santa Claus wasn't actually real. And we were dismayed.
Yeah.
We were dismayed. Even though we were told we'll still get the presents, but it's our parents that get them, and family and loved ones. We were still dismayed that this magical character wasn't real, and that we were hoodwinked and lied to. And we were dismayed. We were deflated by that. So I really genuinely think that some people out there who are adults were traumatized by that, to the point that now they genuinely do not want to see that they were lied to about where they live, in the same way that they did see that they were lied to about Santa. And with this, they can argue that it's a globe. With Santa, they can't. They can't say, no, there really is a Santa. Guess the point was that just doesn't work anymore. But with the globe, they can. They can cling to it. But it genuinely is the same as Santa Claus. It's a lie that was woven at the same age too.
Yes, so it's conditioning. It's allowing you to be conditioned so that you can see that the other deceptions can be accepted, because you start to understand it, and society doesn't sort of talk about it. Well, it's not that relevant. It's not that important. So therefore, it has no value. And anybody that looks at the world differently, they're not part of that person's world. They don't really engage with it. The people that are really locked in this sort of globe mindset are unlikely to ever really come across and really sit down and watch any of these flat earth videos. Virtually, there's a mass of people out there who will never watch any of these videos, or probably even ever watch YouTube, any of this stuff. They're so locked in that that sort of globe agenda, that mindset, that we are not that relevant in their world. And this is all great lies and deception. You see what I mean?
Well,
and we can see that now.
We know that there are people out there that have been arguing and trolling for so long that they've had definitely long enough to pay attention to any of the videos that would at least make
trolls.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. We know that these trolls have been trolling for long enough to stop one day, watch a video that would make anybody at least pay attention and maybe question, is this curvature thing an error? You know, but we don't. These are the dedicated trolls. We know that there is a driven force to slow this down. We know this, but this is what I contend. Okay, this isn't a popular view, by the way. I put it to you. I put it to everybody that what the trolls are doing is necessary. This is what I put to people. It's necessary to slow it down so that society can accommodate the change. Because if left unchecked, it could create a grinding halt. Could create a grinding halt. So, you know, if you're one of the people who drive a nation, or if we want to use these terms, you cannot allow that nation to drive to a halt. You can't. You have to make sure that it's going to continue, that it does not grind to a halt, and not for your safety. This is one of the hardest things for me to have kind of arrived at a conclusion about. I am convinced that the Illuminati, that these guys, even though we have the side that wants to eliminate humanity and all of those things, or at least plays that role, I am convinced that there are some that see themselves, that genuinely see. In fact, the Georgia Guidestones tells us as much, that some of them see themselves as guardians of humanity, who want to make sure that humanity does not extinguish itself. And unfortunately, these guys are in positions of control, positions of power. And these are the guys that are going to make sure, as happy as the outcome could be if it was left unchecked and everybody was celebrating that the earth is flat, that there is a divine creator, that this is not the end, as happy as that outcome could be, there's a possibility that it will go up in flames. And especially with people like Dan Pratt, which unfortunately there's a lot more Dan Pratts out there than the one Dan Pratt. So they have to make sure that it does not end up in flames. And I know this is unpopular, but I'm not endorsing it. I'm just pointing out a very possible practicality here.
From my perspective, flat Earth is one aspect of so many other aspects of our reality that will be a sort of a central node of source, if you can consider that. But the nuances of our existence and our reality might stem from flat Earth, but there are so many other factors that we so-called truthers really need to keep engaging ourselves with, because if flat Earth becomes a bigger than it should be.
Well, wait. Let me correct. Let me correct. Not bigger than it should be. Bigger than is manageable.
Well, I'm saying bigger than it should be by essence of if you focus on something too much.
Oh, right. Yes. If it becomes too important, yes. Let me just take this opportunity, Lindsay, to say hello to Shill Stoppers. Yes, you're welcome to use any video that I ever produce. You know, do what you will with it. Yeah, I just wanted to say that. So thank you, Shill Stoppers. Back to you, Lindsay. Sorry, I was distracted with what he was saying, so I misheard I got the wrong end of the stick with what you were saying. If I'm right, if I've got you right, what you're saying is if the flat earth mentality, phenomenon, reality gets too big in the mentality of people, if it becomes something that stops you sleeping, eating, and so on. Am I right?
Well, I'm thinking more in terms of not degrading, but not maintaining focus on other information about our reality that is just as relevant as understanding the structure of our Earth and the universe. It's like saying, okay, understand that Earth is flat. So what next? Well, I now understand that we're one great big toroidal universe. Everything is, spinning. Matter is not real, it's energy held together. But then what is consciousness? And how does consciousness work with our subconsciousness? And how does our subconsciousness and our consciousness exist, avatar? Because it has been sort of shown that energies can be seen to emanate. People have had operations where half a brain has been removed and they're still able to completely function. They may draw an image of in their mind.
You broke up again.
Mind.
You broke up again, Lindsay.
So they draw a face. They only draw one half of a face.
Wait, Lindsay, you broke up about 20 seconds ago, and it's really not come through.
So yeah, okay. Is that better? Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, I have no idea what happens and why it happens.
No, I don't know either. It might just be buffering somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
But no, what I'm trying to get at is that now I've lost my train of thought, so it doesn't really matter. I think
it will come back. It will come back.
It'll come back.
You were saying if the flat Earth becomes too big to the point that it distracts you from paying attention to other things that you would benefit from paying attention to.
Well, yeah, because if you're try and imagine this. You're looking in a direction, and that direction's accommodating a flat Earth, right? So your whole vision is all flat Earth. And if you are just looking at the flat Earth as your focal point, and you're disregarding all the other elements that come attached to the flat Earth, then by disregarding those other elements, you're degrading what you could be learning whilst you're in that flat Earth mindset. And the flat Earth becomes bigger and more important than all of these other facets that are attached to the flat Earth. And what it does, or can have a tendency to do, is direction away from, again, more of the truth. So you just might be sort of happy I'm a flat earther, that's it. I can still eat junk food. I can still, go out and do this and party and drink alcohol. And I just know the Earth is flat. That's all I need to know. The rest of the world is, that's it. Well, that's mediocre in as much as it's not representing your true self. It's like someone handing you something and you just don't understand what it is that you're looking at. And so you don't understand the value that it has. And flat Earth can sometimes, when you watch some of the flat Earth, because it's such a central focus, there are other facets that are being lost, that are seemingly being devalued, of lesser importance. Flat Earth should expand ourselves out into all of these other areas and explore them with the same level of inquiry than what we did with the flat Earth. If you see what I mean, sort of giving that level up.
Yeah. Listen, guys. Lindsay, question. Is it Vincent? Sorry, guys. I have Vincent messaging here. Is that Vincent or Poncho who's writing now, or was that Poncho who came in? Okay, Vinny's writing. Vinny, you can take your mic, your mute off if you want. Okay, so that who came in was Poncho?
Yes, it was.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
Different account, sorry.
Well, listen. What I'm going to do, if it's okay with everyone, I'm going to immediately restart another Hangout. Not because people have got the link. I'll pass Poncho the link. But because I said to Lindsay and David earlier, and Rory, who was here at the beginning, that what I was going to do to make it not as difficult for people to get their heads around, to split tonight's section into two. The first
Yeah.
part was going to be about what we've been talking. The second part, we'll talk also about what we were talking. So any Poncho and yourself, obviously welcome. But I thought that Lindsay might have something to contribute regarding last
I do.
week. Yeah. So
I do. I've got a couple of things.
yeah, which
Yeah,
was
all right.
So do you want to come back? Anybody out there who's listening, I'm going to close this down. I'm going to restart another one in about 10 minutes, just long enough for people to loosen up, toilet, drink, whatever, and come back. So hopefully everybody will rejoin us. If not, thanks for listening. And this is cut off very quickly because I'm conscious of the time. But guys, please check back. There'll be another hangout. There'll be part 2 in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, well, just send the link, Antonio. It's all right.
Yes, I will do. I will do.
Otherwise, it doesn't matter.
No. I will send you the link. I'll send Poncho the link, or you can pass it to him. And,
Yeah, I will pass it to him.
Yeah, I thought, I don't know who this is. This could be, you know who.
Yeah, I know. I should have told you, but he logged in with the wrong account.
Or if it doesn't matter. If he does it again, tell him just come in, unmute, and say hi. You know.
Yeah, he knows. He knows it right now. It's all right.
All right, cool. Right, so I'm closing this down. I'll see you all in about 10 minutes.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.